In the last week of May 1940, in a hedgerow in northern France, a British officer draws a 6-foot longbow and waits. A German soldier leans over a wall to look for the enemy. The officer looses, and an arrow goes clean through the German's chest. Not a bullet, an arrow. It is 1940, the age of the tank, the machine gun, the dive bomber, and a man is just killed with a weapon from the Battle of Agincourt. It is the only confirmed longbow kill of the Second World War, and the officer who fired it was only getting started. He would capture 42 enemy soldiers with nothing but a sword. He would walk upright into machine gun fire, playing the bagpipes. He would be blown unconscious, thrown into a Nazi concentration camp, and simply walk back out. And when the war finally ended, he was genuinely bitterly furious that it was over. His name was Jack Churchill. His own men called him Fighting Jack. Everyone else called him Mad. When Britain declared war on Germany on the 3rd of September 1939, most men felt a cold weight drop into the stomach. Jack Churchill felt something much closer to relief. He was 33 years old, and for a decade the peace had been slowly killing him. The army had no room for him between the wars. So it let him go, and he drifted from one strange life to the next. He edited a newspaper in Nairobi. He worked as a male model. He appeared in Hollywood films. You can spot him in the background of The Thief of Baghdad, firing a bow. He was, by then, one of the finest archers in Britain, good enough to shoot for his country at the World Championships in Oslo. But a paper target does not shoot back. Therefore, in the end, the target bored him too. So when the recruiting offices threw open their doors in 1939, Jack Churchill was among the very first men through them, and to the quiet horror of the modern army, he brought his own weapons from home. On his hip, he wore a basket-hilted Scottish broadsword. Across his back, a longbow and a quiver of arrows. In his pack, a set of bagpipes. When a fellow officer finally asked him why, he gave the answer he would repeat, unsmiling, for the rest of his life. "Any officer," he said, "who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed." They assumed he was performing. He was not. In May 1940, as the British Expeditionary Force was smashed apart and driven back toward the beaches at Dunkirk, Churchill's small patrol lay in wait beside a village called L'Epinette. He gave his men a single strange order. He alone would signal the attack, and not with a whistle, and not with a shout. He rose up from the hedge. He drew the longbow smoothly back to his ear, the string biting into his fingers. He held it, and he loosed. The arrow crossed 40 yards of French dusk and buried itself in the chest of the lead German soldier, and in the same instant every rifle in the patrol opened up. It is, to this day, the only confirmed longbow kill of the Second World War. A medieval weapon, in a mechanized war, in the steady hands of a man who felt more at home in that moment than he had in 10 years of peace. But a longbow in a hedgerow was only ever going to be the start of it. He found his true home in the Commandos, the raw new units built for men who ran toward the guns instead of away from them. December 1941, a raid on the German-held island of Vågsøy off the frozen coast of Norway. The landing craft grind through grey water toward the shore, and the shore is already alive with fire. Bullets crack off the steel ramp, and there, standing upright at the very front of the boat, in the open, with rounds snapping past his head, is Jack Churchill playing March of the Cameron Men on his bagpipes. He plays the tune all the way to the beach. He finishes it. Then he drops the pipes, lobs a grenade into the smoke, draws his broadsword, and charges up into the burning town with his commandos screaming behind him. The pipes were never a stunt. To Churchill they were a weapon of their own, because a man who is plainly not afraid puts more fear into the enemy than any machine gun ever could. 2 years later, and 1,000 miles south, Italy. The Allied landings at Salerno, September 1943. Churchill is ordered to take a German observation post dug into the high ground above the beachhead. He does not attack it with a company. He takes one corporal and he goes in the dark, and he does not fire a shot. He moves through the sleeping position with the broadsword in his hand and takes the sentries one at a time, silent as a rumor. Then he walks into the center of the post and alone demands that all of it surrender, as though a battalion stood at his back. And it works. 42 German soldiers and a full mortar detachment raise their hands to a single man holding a sword from another century. He marches every one of them back down the hill in the dark, prisoners of one blade. They pinned the Distinguished Service Order on him for it. Privately, he would rather have had another raid and another after that. But the war was about to give him something he could not fight his way out of. Because every man who spends 4 years running toward the guns is, without knowing it, running toward one particular bullet, the one with his name already on it. May 1944, the island of Brač in the Adriatic, off the coast of occupied Yugoslavia. Churchill leads his commandos in a night assault on a fortified German hilltop, marked on the maps as Point 622. And this time, the attack comes apart in the dark. His men are cut down around him one by one. He hears them fall. He hears the firing from his own side thin out, then stop altogether because there is no one left alive to fire it. The position is overrun. His revolver clicks empty in his hand. Jack Churchill is suddenly alone on a black hillside, the wind moving over the grass, German soldiers closing in from every side at once. So he did the only thing he had left. He lifted the bagpipes to his mouth, and in the dark, waiting, he began to play "Will Ye No Come Back Again?" An old Scottish lament, a song of farewell. He played it for the men lying dead in the grass around him. He played it for himself. A grenade burst a few feet away. The whole world went white, then silent. When the Germans reached the top of the hill, they found the wild piper face down and unconscious, the pipes still cradled in his arms. They carried him away to Sachsenhausen concentration camp north of Berlin. The warrior who could not be killed had, at the very last, been caught. The camp could not hold him either. The Germans half believed the strange colonel might be a relative of Winston Churchill himself, so they kept him alive, and that was their mistake. In September 1944, he wormed his way under the wire and out through a disused drain and started walking north, toward the Baltic, toward the sea. They caught him and moved him to a camp in Austria. Then, one night, the lights failed, and Churchill simply walked out through the dark and kept going. 150 miles, on foot, through the mountains of a collapsing Reich, until he came down onto a road, met an American armored column, and had to work hard to convince them that the sunburnt scarecrow in front of them was a British colonel. The war in Europe ended a few weeks after that. Millions of men wept with sheer relief. Jack Churchill asked to be sent to the other side of the world to keep fighting the Japanese. Then the atomic bombs fell. Japan surrendered. All of it, everywhere, was suddenly over. He said the thing everyone still remembers: if it wasn't for those damn Yanks, we could have kept the war going another 10 years. He was not entirely joking. He was a man built precisely and completely for one thing in a century that only needed that thing for 6 years. Afterward, he qualified as a paratrooper in his 40s. He taught himself to surf and rode the great tidal wave that runs up the River Severn on a wooden board he shaped with his own hands. He died quietly in his own bed in 1996 at the age of 89, the warrior who managed to outlive every single war that would have him. He opened his war by killing a man with an arrow in an age of machine guns. And somewhere down in the marrow of him, right to the very end, he never truly understood why the rest of the world had chosen to put its swords away.